um, little exercise is to show you how to use the curvature tool, which is actually quite different from the pen tool. It works really well for some things, and the rules for the curvature tool are quite different. So the curvature tool is the one just below the pen tool. Again, I have a 2-layer document with the bottom layer locked. We'll be drawing on the top layer. I'm going to click on the stroke and change the color to, again, something that'll stand out. And I'm going to select the curvature tool, which is just below the pen tool. Now, if you're used to using the pen tool, the curvature tool is kind of odd, because I'm going to start here. Now I'm going to click here, and it looks like a straight line. But what I'm doing is I'm telling Illustrator this is basically the outside of that curve, and you'll notice what happens to that straight line when I go to the top here. It's like boom, it suddenly becomes a really even curve. So the rule with the curvature tool is if you just click, you get a straight line, get a curve. If you want a straight line or a corner, you have to double click. So I'm going to go to this point here, the point at the top of the umbrella, and just double click here. And you'll see I'm going to double click here. I'm going to double click here. Now, if I think I accidentally didn't quite double click. So if I didn't, I can always fix it. Just go back right away and double click again. So this, I'm going to go here because this is basically the outside of that curve. And when I go down here, you can see that as soon as I click on the bottom there, it becomes a very nice even curve. Now I'm going to double click here because it's a point. So it's a point, needs to be double clicked. And if you don't double click, it tells you. I'm going to click here because that's the top of that curve. Double click here because it's a point. Click once here because it's the top of the curve. Double click here because it's a point. Double click here to make a straight line. And then I can just go around this curve like this, single clicking. Now I have to double click here because I'm going back to a straight line. And I have to double click here because it's a point. Click once here because it's a curve. Double click here because it's a straight line, it's a point. Oops, and I don't think I quite double clicked, but that's okay. I can go back and double click. It's much more forgiving than the pen tool, which is nice about it. And then this last bit here, I have to double click. And you can see that I've got a pretty nice outline here. So remember, the trick with the pen tool is if you want a curve, just click on the outside part of the curve. If you want a point or a straight line, you have to double click. The other nice thing about the curvature tool is that if I want to fix this umbrella handle here, I don't actually have to go to a different tool. I can use the curvature tool itself to move these points around if I can get a hold of them. And I can also click on this line and use the curvature tool to move it in. So we'll also go around the snail here. I'm going to click here to start. And you can see as I go around the curve, curvature tool automatically makes very nice curves, very smooth curves. This is a point, so I have to double click. And clicking, double click here, double click, and then just click, double click. This is a little curve here. Oops, I need to double click there. Double click here, click, 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 double click, double click, 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 click. I'm going to double click here because I think this is a pretty straight line. Double click here. And you can see I'm just single clicking here. And I have a point here, so I need to double click. Again, if the line wanders a little bit, remember you can just put your cursor on it and move it in. So the curvature tool, I remember, is quite different from the pen tool. By default, it makes nice smooth curves. Remember, double click if you want a corner or a straight line. Single click if you want a curve. And you can always add points and move the lines around. And you don't have to go for looking for the white arrow tool, the direct selection tool. You can actually just move the lines with the curvature tool itself. So that's the curvature tool.